Let's go. Game time.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Better Baby Daddy podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, John Lashman.
I'm your other co-host, Kelly Burgess.
Today, B, we're going to hit him again.
Yes, sir.
I think that's what this season's all about. Yeah.
In the chest.
Little combo time. Your house is chaotic because you are. That's it. It's that simple. Your house is chaotic because you are as a man.
Yeah. So, hey, man, last week we talked about just how you can't make excuses for where you're at. A couple episodes ago, we talked about not blaming your kids for this situation. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into some specifics about that.
Yeah. And it all starts with the fact that being emotional, being out of control, being chaotic is going to spread so much faster and infect so many more things than a state of calm will.
Yeah.
And that is a major issue.
It is. And a lot of that chaos and a lot of those rash decisions got us all into these situations, right, from the get-go. So we know it's already baked into your mentality, to your habits, to your systems of how you make decisions. And today we want to draw those things to the surface and talk a little bit about how do we avoid those things, move forward.
Actually, you know what? I just had a thought. This is not in the show notes at all, B. So we're going to...
Here we go.
Here we go. So I think it's good, or it's very productive if we first lay the foundation of our opinion of how a man should operate, what a man should look like in terms of his emotional regulation, like what is that ideal that we're all striving for? And then we can speak to how that chaos just causes so much dysfunction.
All right.
So I think we're similar in terms of our opinions on this, and this is just off the top here, but a man needs to be in control in chaotic situations. He can't bring the chaos. He needs to be in control in chaotic situations is one of them for me.
And I'm thinking about our different roles. We have, of course, roles at home as a dad. If you have a partner, you have a husband or significant other, and then you have work roles, and there's so many variables. Like the men that I think about that are really excellent executors. They're able to take all this different stuff in and then say, this is the direction we're going to go. Or, based on the available data, this is what I think the best decision is. They do never, ever inflame the situation. They may, react strongly to it and say, hey, no, I believe based on these, 1, 2, 3 things that we need to go in this direction and ruffle some feathers. But they're excellent de-escalators when everything else around them is escalating. So that's the first thing that comes to mind is that, that there's a calmness in the midst of the storm for a true mature man.
It's that almost controlled stoicism, right? Where we're like, we should be at that at most times. Now, of course, there's going to be moments in your life, situations that occur where you're emotionally unregulated because you're a human being. But can you limit those? And can you minimize the exposure of those situations or that emotion during those situations?
Right. Yeah, I think of, that, like you said, we're human beings. We're going to make mistakes. And one picture I try to give my sons is, hey, limit the blast radius of your mistakes. I had a really good coffee day with my firstborn, and we were talking about a golf analogy. Like the best golfers, not that they don't make mistakes, they just make a small range of mistakes. So instead of hitting it in the next fairway, they're just 3 feet off the fairway. They're not in a total another hole.
They're not hitting the cart path.
Right, exactly. So you don't want to be the kind of man that when you make a mistake, it's this huge blast radius of damage. And many of us in those situations, because we've been that kind of guy, and we're trying to learn not to be that kind of guy. So that speaks to, hey, there's just this range that I'm going to operate in, and I'm not going to let it, get beyond that. And when I do, that's the other, I think, key of a mature man is, hey, I made a mistake. I'm going to own it quickly and when it's small and then get back to whatever the standard is.
So if you're the opposite end of that spectrum and you're spraying the golf ball all over the fairway or not even on the fairway and you're emotionally unregulated through much of the day, or as soon as something small happens, you hear daddy, daddy, daddy 3 times in a row and it annoys you and you're exploding, you're creating an environment in your home that's causing the chaos.
Yeah, it's a recipe for chaos.
Yeah. kids are running around crazy and everything just looks chaotic to you, you're the man. Step up to the plate and do what needs to be done to control and regulate yourself.
That's it.
And your kids are learning their emotional regulation skills and abilities based on what you're doing, not what you're telling them. So you can tell them, you got to stop being so crazy. You got to stop doing this. You got to stop doing. You delivering that message. And what is the overarching theme that you are projecting into the household?
Yeah. And it takes a reflective man. And we're not saying it's easy. I don't think anything that we've talked about in any of our casts the last year, going into the second year is saying, hey, it's easy. It's a lot of in the dark work, reflective, where you're reflecting on, man, that didn't go too well. Let me try something different, while you're supported by a tribe of guys that's trying to do the same thing. But I think, what you're saying, El, is at the end of the day, that environment in your house is created by you. And so the more that you can move toward the standard of, no matter what's coming my way, I'm able to calmly execute what I have to do as a dad. That's the standard we look for. Last week, I think we talked about we don't ever really arrive, but we're constantly trying to achieve that standard of, hey, you can count on me to be a calm presence in the midst of a lot of stuff going on.
One of the things that we can do is when we're reflecting, we can look at it from the standpoint, am I authoritarian type figure, like verging on dictatorship, or am I exhibiting controlled, regulated leadership? And what do those two things look like in a household?
Well, I think authoritarianism is the first thing that comes to my mind is uncontrolled anger. Like when things are not going to plan, or things are not to standard, or your kids are just being age-appropriate kids, your response to that is so on 10, and you're either not able to walk it back, or no one can even just flex because you got the size and the volume to do it. But a reflective, better baby dad understands my presence and my calmness, and reminding my kids, hey, this is the standards why we're doing this in a calm way, leads to better results than just you explode.
I agree 100% with that. That's so true. It's your ability to reflect at the end of the day and say, okay, now that I reflected and now that I'm aware, what actions can I take to make changes? I think we talked about last episode that awareness is not enough. Awareness is a great start, but that's all it is. Yeah. We can read the books, we can listen to the podcast, we can read the articles, we can do all those different things. But until you take action, what are you doing? Really?
In game time situations, in real time situations. And it doesn't end. You have little girls, I have grown, men and women, and that, hey, Dad, you did this thing and it impacted me this way. Can you try something different next time? That really, in some ways, doesn't really ever end, because our role just evolves as dads. And if you're able to say, man, I got this feeling about how I think things should have gone as a dad, but I'm getting this feedback from my kid. Let me take that back and, bounce it off another dude, think about it, meditation journal about it, and then come with a different approach that's more effective. Man, I mean, you're hitting all the spots. If you don't do that, you're making a vote to isolate your kid eventually. They'll just shut down and be like, okay, not going to this cat anymore and get blasted. But it's a learned skill.
I can remember before I really started growing as a man, and my girls were little, especially when my youngest was even, I don't know, she was probably 2 or 3, and she I can't remember exactly what it was, but I blew up, and I had to step back after I did that, and I was like, heck just have it.
Yeah.
And I had to think, like, what am I teaching her?
Yeah.
What am I doing to her right now in this moment? Those moments, if they occur for you, have to be catalysts for change.
They really do.
They have to be those moments where you're like, whoa, you have to step back, reflect, and take action in a different direction. And it's a slow process.
It is.
You're going to make mistakes on that path. You might blow up again on something that was age appropriate, but can I reflect again? Okay, what was that trigger? What was that moment in time that caused me to do this? And how can I then, when I reach that moment again, when the edge rusher's coming bearing down on me, where's my hot read?
Hit the red and run it back in the flat right there.
I'd be proactive and move the running back and be like, hey, I need you to chip right here on this edge.
Please.
Or I need some extra protection on my blind side. Can you be that proactive? Can you get to that point where you're reflecting it enough where you're proactive and you're going into a situation where you've had trouble in the past and you can put up those guardrails?
And that it 5-year-old in a normal household. And then it's, hey, in the moment, it's you knowing, well, what are your, I know you hate this word, what are your triggers as a man? What are those hot buttons for you as a man that when you see this show up in your kid, it's like, I can feel that heat in my chest. It might be your kid doesn't, you call your kid's name and they don't respond to you right away. Or they're like, huh, or they're a little slow to do what you ask them to do. And it's like, that's a thing for you. It's like, okay, well, what are you going to do in that moment? What are some other techniques? What's your heart rate? Or, you making an adjustment at the line. But it takes that kind of work when you're not in the stress of the situation to come up with a game plan for when you're in the situation. And it does not end. I think that's the biggest thing I want to tell guys that's on the front of this thing. That kind of adjusting and learning yourself doesn't end simply because kids get 18 and they go off to college. You just run a different place with them. Yeah. So all we're saying is your emotional stability can be a learned behavior, just like emotional instability is a learned behavior. Mm-hmm. And your kids are going to pick up that from you more than your words is what I think the point you were trying to make.
Yeah, absolutely. I just thought of another analogy, and we're going to stay with that football theme, is, when you're a rookie dad, game moves so fast, B. You're changing diapers. You're doing this. Blah, 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 blah. I would say, unless you come from a very well-structured, disciplined, positive, emotionally regulated household, which can't say I necessarily came from that perfect, ideal household. Right. I don't think many people can.
No.
Right? Yeah. The game is going to stay fast for a while. And when the game starts slowing down, that's when you can make the reads at the line. You can slide protection, right? You can audible to a different play. Right. You can do those things. But until the game slows down, it's like, yeah. Are they going to blitz? Well, I didn't even see the blitz coming. I had no idea. I got smacked. I didn't see the safety roll over.
And, that's such a good analogy. It's like, I was thinking, you better have some scripted plays for that first year, 2 years, because it does come at you. It comes at you fast and it's so unpredictable. I just think back to, when I was, a young dad, and then, my daughter, a couple of my kids are young parents, and they were talking about just the amount of work it takes to get 2 kids in the car to go like grocery shopping.
You ain't ready for that.
So you take, it says, oh, okay, it's going to take you 45 minutes to get, and then put the 3-year-old in, but then turn the car on, up. 3-year-olds got to go to the bathroom, take them out, go to the bathroom, let's start all over.
Then you forgot the shopping bag.
Right.
Then you forgot the bottle. Then you don't have extra diapers. And it exploded.
And that's an ideal situation. We got 2 parents working, right?
Yeah.
Working at it. But if you're a single pop, and it's easy to... What children do is they expose the weakness in your gameplay.
Oh man,
and they expose weaknesses. They're stressed.
They're Hall of Fame defensive coordinators.
But so when you get stressed or you're on 10, resist the impulse to just be an authoritarian dad and go back to those skills you learned in the calm moments and execute a calm leadership game plan, which is a regulated response based on your kid. But it takes time. We're going to stick with that football analogy because, first of all, I pass on my condolences to the Pittsburgh Steelers. My team is already in Cancun. We got a couple beach chairs ready for y'all, bros.
We'll be down.
Right. Y'all get ready. Y'all in bull. But that football analogy is so good because it's like it's that film study after the game that says, man, yeah, we missed that. Okay, we're going to install this on Wednesday. Do that kind of work in anticipation of the stuff you're going to see coming down the pike with the kids.
Yeah, because you don't want to be at the press conference explaining how you weren't prepared for the game.
Right, how you run 4 verticals against cover 4. And you no chance of working.
You got smoked. So I want to shift gears slightly here, and I want to talk about how structure, like legitimate structure being put in place really helps mitigate, control, minimize chaos in the household. And as men, we really have to lean into that structure and that discipline, but we also can't get confused by saying, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. That's not necessarily structure. It's just us being really busy.
Really busy, yeah. And it is easy to fill your time with stuff as opposed to being effective.
Yes.
I love Stephen Covey's kind of framework of, we all have these roles. You have a role as a dad, you have a role as a worker, you have a role as a son, you have a role as, maybe you run a business, and thinking through your week, and maybe it kind of tailors to how a man thinks kind of linear, is thinking through your week and think, what are the two main priorities I have to achieve in these roles? If nothing else happens, what do I need to, what do I need to do as a dad? It might be a one-on-one date with your daughter. If nothing else happens, what I got to do as a husband or a significant other? Oh, we got to have, a date night, or we got to talk about this real sensitive issue. And just making sure you're always keeping those things front of mind, because 168 hours a week, man, it's going to get filled up with stuff. And the more, and it doesn't mean you have to be completely inflexible, but like you like to say, discipline leads to freedom. Structure leads to actual freedom. And it helps you to be able to say, the biggest thing is to be able to say no to the things that are not going to help you execute the main things you got to do.
Absolutely. I guess the question then becomes, and I'll answer this as well, is that confusion between structure and just simply being busy. So busy masquerading as structure. Where does that confusion occur? And how does that lead to exhaustion? How does that lead to chaos? How does that lead to the chaotic moments in our lives? And so that was like a multi-layered question there. The first part of it is, why? No. How do men confuse being busy and being structured? Like, where does that disconnect occur?
Are we talking to single dudes, like dudes? Definitely not single. But we're talking about the guys that are, dealing with the dynamics of being a
better baby daddy.
Better baby daddy. Okay. So two things can end up being filling up your time. One is complete time wasters, where you're medicating yourself because you're not taking care of the most important things, right?
Okay.
So you feel like, you do a little work towards your goals, and you deserve, 7 hours of TV on Saturday. The other thing is, I think dudes have a hard time just sitting still, period. And so that activity becomes its own medicine. Keeps you from doing the deep reflective work, you got you from hitting some of those main priorities. And I think it's it's kind of wired into us. It's almost like a pat on the back if we're busy, we feel like we're being effective, but we can just be busy and distracted with not important things. So where do you think it comes from?
That's a great question that I asked you, that you asked me. So thank you.
Can't wait to see. There's another one that wasn't scripted, so I'm going to learn something.
I would say that the biggest mistake we make when we're confusing busyness with structure is when, a single father or a father that has visitation, picking up our kid, we're like, oh, we got to do this with our kid, we got to do that with our kid, and we're doing all these different things. But when it's just busy stuff, when something doesn't go correctly, when it's off the cuff, chaos ensues. So if I'm going to pick up my daughter and I'm like, all right, this weekend, while I'm driving down there, I'm like, all right, this weekend, we're going to go here, we're going to go here, we'll go here. And one of those, the middle place is closed or something happens. All of a sudden the weekend's thrown into somewhat of chaos because I didn't provide structure to the weekend. Okay. Now, if I'm sitting back on Thursday evening, I'm like, oh, let me do this and let me research to make sure this is open. Right. Let me see what times this place is open. Right. Let me get tickets in advance. That's the structure. Yeah. It's much different than just simply being busy throughout the weekend with my girls. I'm providing a framework that I'm being proactive in constructing.
So it sounds like you're talking about pre-planning. Like you have a system to pre-plan. So say you have your girls not this weekend, but the following weekend, right? You're planning now for the following weekend. You're doing all that logistics for the following weekend, which means you have a mindset to take. So the stuff you're taking care of right now, you thought about and planned 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Right. Okay. So when you don't have that, what it reminded me of is something we talked about a couple weeks ago, is that you're a very reactive dad and person. And because you have such limited time with your kids, and because there's so many other variables, you cannot afford to be reactive. You have to be even more planned than you were. Right. And by the nature of us being in these situations where we're not in the house with our kids, there was some lack of planning taking place. Impulse decisions being made. We're just saying, right?
Weren't able to pull out of certain situations, right? And that's what happened.
That's for middle school listeners, right? Yes. So, and then when you don't have structure, you don't have plan. I like planning also, and structure also gives you margin. So when you look and say, oh man, it's kind of, this week is a little too busy. We have no flex for anything to go wrong. So a wise planner puts a little buffer in there, a little margin. When you don't do that, then it leads to exhaustion. Yeah. It leads to mental exhaustion and physical exhaustion.
Absolutely. And then it increases exponentially when we're unplanned and we just spur of the moment stuff is occurring. And some spur of the moment stuff is good.
Yeah.
It feels great to do those things.
Yeah.
But when we're just constantly living like that and something doesn't go right, how am I reacting now in front of my children? Because now I'm this open, this is, what the heck, I planned, you didn't plan. And then your children are viewing you react in this light.
Sure.
So now when they encounter a situation at school, they're like, oh, I think it was planned, I don't know what to do.
Right. Yeah.
Because as we always say, more is content.
Yeah, and you're constantly teaching, whether you think you are or not, whether you know you are or not. You think, it's these sit down, direct lessons that you're teaching. You're constantly teaching them. And the more you can do the pre-plan, it's just like a good teacher, the more pre-planning and things you can plan for before you're actually in that classroom with those kids, generally better, the more effective the lesson's going to be. But you're always teaching. You're always on stage with your kids. When you don't have that structure, moving on to that next point, your house is going to feel chaotic, undisciplined, unstable, unsafe. All those things are going to begin to percolate. Like your kids can be like, I can't really count on anything in here. And then they're going to react to that. And you have to resist the tendency to blame your kids for reacting to the chaos that you create in the house from your lack of structure.
And I think it takes a really deeply reflective man to say, I've created the chaos in the house through my actions, through my unregulated behaviors, through my unregulated emotions. Like, that's a lot to burn. Like, this whole environment is because of me?
Yeah.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, it is.
Like, dang.
Yeah. And even, 20 years past divorces, I still reflect on, like, sometimes I'll be driving to work and be thinking about situations that I had my kids in because of a lack of planning. And I'm like, I'm glad they're in their mind. They're in a sane frame of mind because they were in some chaotic situations. And then there's let me go back and repair. Hey, not that I'm over apologizing again. It's like, hey, I recognize that, man, that was a stressful time. Hey, that was on me. And so it's never the kid's fault. I think the point you put in the show notes. It really is a reflection of your everything in your house is a reflection of your leadership. And even when unplanned, crazy things happen, your response to those things is a reflection of your leadership.
It's the accountability aspect of things. If you're able to take real accountability, you're able to make real changes. And unfortunately, I know early on in my life, I wasn't able to do that. But once I started doing that, drastic change. And I think we spoke to this before, is once you really start taking accountability, you feel empowered.
You do.
Like, that's the number one thing that occurred with me. It was like, oh, snap. I got all this power within me to make. I made all these decisions that led down this path, but now I have the power because I've owned all this to make better decisions and travel down a different road.
Yeah, it's 180-degree difference in your approach to life and your feeling of agency. And then when your kids pick up on that, now you're planting the seeds of a child that says, yeah, I'm gonna make mistakes, but I'm gonna quickly course correct because I own the mistake. Going back to our second point, when you're an authoritarian, explosive parent, it creates the counter in your kids. Your kids don't become more accountable when you're explosive. They're less likely to shoulder responsibility for what they've done. And it's harder for them to apologize and then get back to doing the right things because they want to shield themselves from the shame of what they feel they've done. But if you as a man can demonstrate, man, I made this mistake, I'm going to verbally own it, and then this is where we're going. I exploded, and I shouldn't have said that. Daddy wants to use, more gentle speech with you, but this is what I meant to say. This is the way I should have said it. And hey, this is the direction we're going to go.
I want to lean into what you just said there, because I think there's this, as men and fathers, there's a really delicate balancing act that we have. And I don't know what that percentage of what I'm going to speak about, I don't know what that percentage necessarily is, but I'm of the mindset that, there should be, and we've spoken about this a little bit, there should be some fear. Your child should have some base level fear to like, oh, I don't want to F this up. But but the primary source of them doing the right thing should come from the respect that they have for the family, for you, and the morals and values that you are instilling in them.
I agree. I think that early on, I'm a firm believer that from 0 to 5, your children have to. So let's talk about two different households. In a household with, mom and dad there, 0 to 5, your children have to understand and respect the hierarchy between adult authority and their place. As they're coming into kind of this awareness that they're a separate person from you, which I don't know the exact age when that happens, they need to understand that, man, it's
actually, I just read a book on that.
What is it?
Around 2 years old.
2 years old?
Now, up until around 2, kids almost think they are you.
Yeah.
They think they're just an extension of you. But then that's when the terrible 2s start, and they start getting this autonomy, like, oh, I'm a separate person.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can act on the world, right? And so that's when speech starts happening, and they're extremely mobile, and they do what they want to do. And you have from 0 to 5, I think, to just establish, hey, this is the structure of the household. And the more stable you and mom are, or the more they'll be just kind of like a normal kid. When there's a disruption in that, and it's just you, dad, or just mom, the majority of the time, you still have that task. It's just much harder because the kid has much more to navigate. So you do the structure, that standard of, no, I'm the adult, I love you, and there's just certain base level things we got to establish. Otherwise, if you don't, and we see it in our profession, it's cute at 3 or 4. It's not cute at 13.
No.
That, hey, don't touch that. And they run and touch it. That's kind of funny and cute at 3 or 4. But if they don't respect, hey, man, when I call you, I need you to stop and give me your full attention. That shows up in our profession when we call them and they just completely ignore us at 12 or 13. And then at 17, they're out and there's another authority calling them and life claps them.
It was a great, so I think you're alluding to the conversation we had with a retired police officer.
Yes.
And then now think of that timeline of, at 2 or 3, you think that them not responding to you is cute, that in middle school, they don't respond to adult figures or authority figures in middle school. And it's like, all right, there's minimal consequences associated with that. And sometimes none. High school, maybe the consequences get a little more. Now I'm out in the real world. I'm not responding to authority figures.
Tragic.
Now it's life or death sometimes.
It's literally life or death. And we're not being hyperbolic. We have taught children that at 12, it's like, something happened there where their view of authority is really skewed. No one can get in their ear. And then 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 years down the road, tragic consequences because that habit wasn't shifted. And so I'm with you on that. Like, there has to be this authority, like healthy. You're not fearing in the sense that your kids are cowering, but it should be a shift in their behavior when they hear your voice. Yeah. Otherwise, if you're just Charlie Brown's teacher in their ear, you got a problem. You have a serious problem.
A problem that's going to continue to grow
in you, right? And us guys that are in better baby daddy situations or baby daddy situations, meaning that you're on the front end of this and you don't really know what to do, your job is even harder because there's so much other stuff in your kid's ear besides your voice.
Yes.
So much. You better hope you have a baby mama that's affirming the things you're trying to instill in your kid's life, regardless of what happened between you and her. That she's like, hey, that's your dad. When you're there with him, hey, it's his rules. You hope you get that. But you may not, and the chances are early on you ain't gonna get that, bro. You got like a little maze, all right? So you got to fight through, all that static. and still get to the point where, hey man, when you hear me 48 hours, this is how we got roll. Instead of you being able to correct that over 3 or 4 months because you're in the house with a kid every day, it's like, that's your work for a year. Just try to establish that we got different rules here and we just not gonna be out of pocket. So I'm with you fully on that. We can go all day on just the importance of early establishing that.
Yeah. And that early structure is going to limit later chaos.
Yeah. And it's not fear, like we said, of like your kids are, if it's done right, your kids are leaning into with you the mistakes they make. They're bringing the mistakes to you first. Yeah. Daddy, I know you said, hey, Daddy, I'm really aware of the standard in their childlike way.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it. I'm sorry. How can you help me fix it? Mm-hmm. Like, if you get to that place with your kids, dude, doing your part. But it takes a lot of work to do that in normal circumstances. Quadruple the work to do it when you're a better baby dad and try to do it on limited time. But you still got to do it.
And you have to be on your game. Like, you have to be ready to roll. Like, you have to have that. Go back to football. You have to have that game plan. You have to have those 15 scripted plays to start the game. You have to have the backup plays ready to go when something doesn't go right. Yeah. And that is going to limit the amount of chaos that is occurring in your household. And that's our goal, is to limit the amount of chaos. Because if it is chaotic, as we said at the beginning of this, that's on you. You find a way to fix it. Yep. And hopefully, what we deliver here are some insights that allow you to begin that process. Yes. I want to move on a little bit. Sure. That's cool with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to talk about one of the things that lead to a lot of stress and chaos in the house that we may not realize on a conscious level, that is leading to a lot of our explosiveness that our kids are picking up on. And that is finances.
Yeah. Yeah. Finance destroys healthy men and women relationships because it puts stress on the relationship, and it's 10 times more stress when you're a single parent. So, not to belabor the point, but going back to structure, man, I got a budget, which is just simply a plan before you get the money on how you go and spend the money, and then a way to track whether you did that. And if you don't have that, if you're unregulated in that, eventually those chickens come home to roost.
Yeah. And when we're under that financial stress, it's going to manifest itself in the dynamic between our kids and ourselves in ways that are not going to be that positive. Right. I'll just leave it at that. Well, I'm not going to leave it at that, but I'm going to say it's not that positive. So your tone's going to change when you're interacting, when you're thinking, when your kid's talking to you about something and you don't like what they're saying, or you don't like what they're doing in front of you, but you're thinking about making the rent payment, making the car payment, figuring out insurance payments, figuring out all this stuff, you're at a heightened level. So now, what does that response look like when you're already heightened?
Yeah, much shorter, much louder, much more impatient.
Much more aggressive.
Much more aggressive. That money stress is the app that's always running in the background of your mind when it's not managed well. On the flip side, when you manage well, you're able to tell your kids, hey, these are the limitations. I remember, because I had a rack of kids, right? A compressed period of time. And I remember taking them out. And to this day, they'll tell me, Dad, you remember you took us out? You were like, no sodas, water for every. Sodas are $3 a piece. It's $7 y'all, Joe, because I'm not paying $21 for those sodas. So they just knew it was going to be water and we might split an app. But it's because there was a plan, and I was not the best, and I still have to work on finances. But it's funny, like, when you do have some sort of plan or structure, you could deliver that pill to your kids. They'll be like, oh, okay, we just know it's going to get water. Can we get 2 ice cubes? It's not a big thing. But if you don't have the structure, it is going to come across. Why you asking for a Sprite? You always ask for. Yeah, Dad, relax. Not on your kids, it's on you.
Yeah. You're creating the environment. Kids live in the environment that we create.
They do.
That's it. It's simple as that. It's funny you say that because I can remember my dad. It's like, I haven't been in a fast food joint in so many years, but do they still have the self-serve sodas in there?
They do.
Okay. So my dad be like, I remember all the time. Before we go in, this was his structure. Same thing. We just getting water. Tell them we just getting water. All right? And my dad be like,
7 sodas later.
Because it's self-serve. And I can remember the employees looking at us like, you ordered water. What are you doing?
Yeah,
structures in place. Yeah. So you need emotional structures, but you also need financial structures in place. Finances can be a beast when you're a baby daddy, especially if you're getting hit with that CS. It can really be a beast. And then, so what are you going to do to mitigate the stressors that are associated with finances? And the number one thing is just being proactive. And then how can I create more income?
Yep.
Completely eliminating the amount of time that I have to spend with my children.
Yeah. And that's the money thing is, it's easier to make more money than it is to keep slicing. There's almost so much so much budgeting and trimming that you can do.
Yeah.
But if you go out and make another, $500 a month,
Okay.
that gives you a little bit of breathing room. But the point is, have a plan, have a structure, and I like what you said, be proactive.
Proactive. And everything in life, we need to have the ability to be proactive. But to be proactive, we have to have those structures in place already. Right. And if you don't have those structures in place, if you don't have that discipline, the environment of your household is going to be chaos.
It is.
It's going to be complete chaos, and you're responsible for that chaos.
Yep, sure. So what happens when kids see unregulated adults?
Mirror that. They're going to be unregulated themselves.
Yeah.
And they're not going to have the skills that are necessary to bring themselves back from the verge of that emotional outburst, or not even the verge, the actual outburst.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to have the skills to draw that back in.
Yeah, we're in like the prefrontal cortex for all of our kids, right? Yeah. We're that thinking part of the brain for them.
Yeah, because that doesn't develop until fully develop until 25. Think about that.
If we're lucky, I think mine might have been like 37 and a half before
I think so.
I had some work still going on around 37 and a half. I ain't gonna lie. But with kids, they mirror what you do, and particularly male to male. Like if a male sees, we're talking to dads here primarily. If he sees you, something happens and it's explosive, cursing, physical outbursts, that's his template. It's going to take a lot of work for him to undo. That's what you are the prime teacher in his life. And it takes a lot to undo that as the default. Mm-hmm. Particularly in our community, it's going to feel like, man, you a punk, communities of color, we just flex. And for you to show him another way is a powerful move, but you got to internalize that yourself first. Just if you could just think, gentlemen, that whatever I do, my kids are going to do times 10. Mm. I curse a little bit, man, they're going to be second grade talking about where the MF pencils at, flying off on people. Mm-hmm. Because like you said, they don't have the ability to kind of calibrate that, read rooms. They're just going to be coming out cursing, fighting, putting their hands on people. When they get 13 or 14, they're going to be trying to stick and move on everything they get to because that's what they've seen you do. Learn to regulate yourself so your kids can have a template of what to do. Yeah, the regulation of your kid is really based on your ability to regulate as well. You said something very interesting, and that made me think. You said, if you're a man and you're a father and you have sons, it's extremely important that you do certain things. But what I realized, that sentence there made me reflect on my situation. And obviously I have girls, right, but one is with me all the time. So if you're in a situation similar to mine, that right there, my little one does exactly what I do all the time. So, we go through certain regulation exercises for our emotions, right, or I teach her these things. Right. And, sometimes a lot of it is just breathing, getting ourselves calm and under control so we can think clearly in a situation. I'm like, if she gets upset, she already knows. She's going to start breathing. What do you need to do right now? All right, I'm going to take some deep breaths and I'm going to take them slow. But when I start to get elevated, I'll start doing that, right? And it might just be one or two breaths. I'm like, all right. And she's like, Daddy, you okay? Yeah. She knows what it's about. Yeah. In that moment, she knows that, all right, this is time where Daddy might be a little upset. Right. So he's doing what he taught me, essentially. Right. So they so much pick up on what we're doing. They really do. It's amazing. Yeah. And me telling her to do that is cool, but me showing her that I do that is the big thing right there. Good. That is the lesson. We have a saying in our household, be, quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. And so when the kids are bringing me something and they're bringing heavy things, right? It's like that, like you said, that inhale, I might give them a puzzle look or something, but I'm really conscious of not saying the first thing in my mouth. We have another saying that everything in your brain doesn't have to pass by your teeth. But it takes practice because I want them to mimic that in the situations when, stressful stuff comes their way. But yeah, they'll mimic what you do as opposed to listen to what you said.
I mean, I don't know how many more times we can say that, or how many different ways we can say that exact sentence right there, right? If you're not able to regulate yourself, you're creating chaos. And I know that was what we've said in this episode 47,000 times. But if you're not able to regulate yourself, you're going to create chaos. And that chaos is your responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
It's not your kids. It's not your kids' responsibility. I don't care how old they are. You're the man of the household.
Yes.
Whether they're there on weekends or they are there all the time, you are the man of that household.
Yeah,
and it's your responsibility.
Absolutely. And, just kind of put a bow on it. It's okay to be in process with it, too.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
because you're always in process.
You're always in process. And part of the, I think as a maturing, man who's becoming a better baby daddy is being able to articulate to your kid, hey, daddy is working on that. Hey, I used to be this way. Now I'm working on that. And so, hey, next time, it'll look like this. But, say those things to your kid. And by saying it, it affirms to you that, man, I'm doing the work, right? And it lets them know you realize you used to be a certain way and you're making moves to, to a different standard. But it's okay to be in process. We're all there.
Yeah.
But don't pretend like if you don't tighten these areas up, it's not going to have a negative impact on your kids. So the world there's tons of evidence of how unregulated men have damaged whole communities. And so just one guy at a time, become the regulated, structured man we need y'all to be.
Absolutely. It is your job as a man to create peace and safety in your household.
Yep.
That's your job. And an unregulated man will never create peace for anyone else. It's that simple.
There it is. All right. So 226 coming at you hard. Hey, we come at you hard, but we're with you on the journey.
Yes, sir.
We said that from episode 1. So thanks for joining us again. Until next time.
I'm Joe.
I'm Kelly.
Peace.